Alright, welcome to another episode of Birdsong. This one is a solo cast, and what I'm doing here is all part of this greater creative expression and expansion that I'm exploring and offering. And I've been way more active on social media lately through my newsletters, and really my intention here, or at least part of it, well, it's all about diversifying the messages and structuring them accordingly for each platform: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, audio recording. So this is another avenue of doing so. And what I'm riffing about here is in alignment to what I've been sharing in my newsletters. So if you're not receiving them and you'd like to, I'll leave a link in the description, or you can head to kayutakiora.com/newsletter, pop your email in. Maybe you want to wait till the end of the recording if you're not already on it to see if you're vibing what I'm sharing. So what I want to talk about here is the fact that Norse mythology has been coming into my field again lately. And what I mentioned in a recent newsletter were the tales and the travels of the great one-eyed god Odin. Now, I will spare you the finer details, but the imagery of how Odin came to sacrifice, to lose that one eye, is certainly one worthy of rumination, of reflection. So, this is how the story goes. After a long and arduous journey through the land of the giants, Odin reached Mimir's well, the waters of wisdom that bubble up from deep within the earth and feed the roots of the great world tree, Yggdrasil. Odin requested a drink. However, Mimir, the guardian of the well and the keeper of memory, stated in clear terms the sacrifice needed for such a drink. Odin obliged, and without a second thought, he gouged out his eye and dropped it into the well. The sacred vessel, known as the Gjallarhorn, scooped up the water. Odin drained it down, and just like that, knowledge and wisdom came flooding in, and Odin could see farther with more clarity with that one eye than he had ever seen with two. So, the imagery, the metaphor of sacrificing one way of seeing for another is likely obvious. And lately, I have been wondering about this intersection of sacrifice, commitment, integrity, compromise. Now, if you've been following along on my journey, you may be aware that I somewhat recently completed a 30-day dirt time challenge of primitive fire making, friction fire, using my hands, hand drill. And I did that every single day for those 30 days alongside a daily video episode on social media, which was fun, but also exhausting, particularly the way that I was doing it. But that specific video series, that stopped at day 30, but the message that was coming through was for me to keep on continuing with fire making. And so far, as of mid-Jan 2024, I'm creeping up on close to 80 days. And that kind of commitment certainly has its challenges. I mean, obstacles arise, sacrifices need to be made. The question of compromise certainly has a seat at the table. And so too does integrity. And I've come to learn that there are at least two aspects of integrity, and you might want to call them the yin and the yang, or the masculine and the feminine qualities of integrity. So this is when our actions match our words, so it's following through with what we say. You might consider that to be the masculine aspect of integrity. But then also when our intuitive, soul-based knowing directs us otherwise, even if we've said something different to begin with, it's really listening to what feels right at a bone deep level and pivoting if something feels drastically or dramatically off. So you could consider that to be the feminine aspect of integrity. So there's this marriage that's happening here. And that aside, what I really want to offer here is a moment or a few moments of rumination. Is there a dirt time practice, a skill set that you've been feeling called to apprentice to commit to? And on that note, what's your relationship with commitment? What are you committed to in life? What do you need to sacrifice? Where are you making compromises? And look, we're over halfway through January, but many of us are still riding the festive season, New Year current. And it's certainly a current that holds a lot of collective weight. So it's as good a time as any to muse on these questions. And there's certainly a cliche saying that gets around in, dare I say, these types of healing, awakening communities when it comes to this kind of larger umbrella, this broader expression of seeking personal change. You may be familiar with that quote. You may have used it yourself. And it goes like this: I'm ready to let go of what's no longer serving me and step into the new. Well, in some recent posts, I've certainly dropped some potentially unpopular or unfamiliar, unspoken about opinions on that regurgitation. And look, I just reckon it's lazy thinking. There could be way more nuance here. So if you use that phrase, if you've heard that phrase, I'm certainly interested and encouraging of more specific layers of inquiry, such as what exactly are you ready to release? How is it not serving you? How is it still serving you? And as I say, if you need to release, you're still attached. And if you're still attached, it's still serving you. I'll say that again. If you need to release, you're still attached. And if you're still attached, it's still serving you in one way or another. Something to get curious about. So, begs the questions. Are you really ready to sacrifice an eye, to give up one way of seeing for another? Are you ready to make new commitments in life, to seek newfound determination, discipline, focus, drive? Because if you are and you make those choices, sweet, more power to you. Perhaps just like Odin, a long and arduous journey awaits through the land of giants towards the well of knowledge and wisdom. And if you do fully commit, it's worthwhile to say that I believe the journey will pay off in good time, either in what you build, in what you create, or who you become along the journey. And there's something to be said about this larger arc in life and the direction that we're going. So many of us have, or at some stage have been gasping for some kind of bigger picture clarity in our paths forward. And I tell you what, from my own personal experience, it can be like quicksand. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, feeling like a broken compass, needle flicking aimlessly around, misdirecting ourselves, confusing ourselves. It took me an embarrassingly long time to pull myself out of that quicksand before I drowned. And funnily enough, how I pulled myself out involved something simple that I was doing all along, and I just didn't recognize it. I didn't have the awareness to harness it for the better, for my own greater good. And I can guarantee other people are stuck in the same place too. So, to take it all the way back, when I first started drinking plant medicine, I developed an insatiable thirst for knowledge and wisdom, not unlike Odin. Not to mention health as well. So, previous to that, I spent over a decade playing drums in punk bands, pop punk bands, living a progressively reckless party life with a complete disregard for my own health, not to mention relationships with people around me, friendships, intimate relationships. And look, all of that aside, after 6 months of overseas travel, I ended up really, really sick and bedridden for almost a year. And that was certainly a pivotal time in my life of eventually, and I should say very, very slowly, uh, going through an awakening process, seeking more clarity, purpose, direction in my life. And there were many mentors that I came across and leaned into. And in this particular context, in this particular story, one of them was the holistic health guru, Paul Chek. And I still follow along with Paul Chek's work. I think he's great. He starts at a painfully obvious place when it comes to finding clarity and carving out the life that we want. And that painfully obvious place is, what is your dream life? What is your dream goal? And yeah, I know, it's basic. And there are certainly 101 questions that we could continue with to develop more of this clarity. We could get into some of John DeMartini's work on dissecting our values across our personal, relational, vocational, spiritual aspects of life. But look, for the sake of brevity here, Paul Chek quickly pivots away from what is your dream life, what is your dream goal, and he says, if you cannot for the life of you envision your dream goal, picture your worst nightmare. Picture your worst nightmare. And that should give you a reference point for what you absolutely do not want to aim for nor actualize or manifest in your life. It gives you an anchor point to untether from and steer away from. So if you have to, you start there. And there's certainly something to be said about staying anchored in that imagery though. Permanently orienting your awareness and your vibratory state to what you don't want is a surefire way of manifesting in that exact thing. But visualizing and Visualizing and exaggerating the pain of our nightmare scenario or our current situation certainly can be rocket fuel for motivating us to get the hell away from there. You get the hell away from the pain that we're experiencing, a current situation where we just experience so much discontent and dissatisfaction in life. So, enhancing that feeling, it can really build a burning desire to actualize change. So, there's nuances here, as always. When it comes to manifestation, what people forget is that the law of attraction is preceded by another, the law of vibration. So, manifestation, it's largely a vibratory state of consciousness, with our actions and our behaviors preceding that. So, thought first, form second. You might be familiar with the Hermetic principles. The universe is mental. So we've got ancient Hermetic principles and philosophy meets Nikola Tesla here. And Nikola Tesla says if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So a lot of these philosophies came into my life like a divine spark. And the simple thing that I mentioned earlier that I became actively, acutely aware of, alongside all of these divine sparks that allowed me to make such a monumental pivot in life, was this: cultivating curiosity. I know, boring and simple stuff, right? But seriously, developing an awareness around getting curious, cultivating a mindset of wondering and self inquiry helped me time and time again. So, getting curious about my interests, getting curious about my health, getting curious about my relationships, about my conditioning, about my gifts, about my purpose, about some of the mysteries and esoteric principles of reality. I mean, I mentioned that I had an insatiable thirst, hunger for knowledge and wisdom. I'd spent all that time playing drums in punk bands and pop punk bands, and it was a great time, but so reckless that I didn't learn a goddamn thing about myself, nor about the larger scope of life, about reality. So when I got that thirst, yeah, it was unquenchable for a long time. Hmm. So I started approaching life with questions, with ruminations, rather than always approaching with statements. I don't know my purpose in life can turn into, I wonder what my purpose is. Manifestation doesn't work for me can turn into, I wonder if there's more to learn about how manifestation works. I'll never be good enough can turn into, I wonder why I feel like I'll never be good enough, or how can I start to feel like I'm good enough? I never have enough money can turn into, I wonder how I can transform my relationship with money. And it's stepping stones, wondering, wandering. We get curious, we ask questions, we take a step towards gaining information, learning more, acquiring experiential knowledge to keep more moving forward into those curiosities. And when we follow our curiosity and take action upon it, it can open doors into the unknown, and we can collect creative firepower to shift gears and move towards something new in our lives. And it's certainly my experience that there is something much deeper, much greater calling us forth. You might like to call that soul or spirit. I articulate soul as being the unique, individual, divine blueprint within us. These individual filamental strands of which we're all connected to the universal all, the absolute. Spirit. Spirit being the overarching animating force, the unified field that moves throughout all of life. And there's a whisper, a yearning, a cosmic desire that can call us closer towards our unique gifts, our unique medicine, that, if we choose it, we can actualize, embody, and share that with the world. And it's an unknown path, this path. The pathless path, as some mystics might say. One that requires courage, creativity, imagination, intuition, amongst many, many other qualities when we do step into the unknown. What I've come to know is, one of the things that I've come to know is, when I feel something at a bone deep level, when I feel a soul-centered pulse calling me forth, it's to remain strong in my conviction to the path before me, to really back myself, grit my teeth if I need to, call on the warrior within when things get tough, surrendering into grief when I need to, returning to prayer when I forget. It's creating beautiful spaces to foster insight, imagination, inspiration, creativity. So many of us want change and transformation, and it's often easier to directly change our environment than to directly change ourselves. So ensuring we have a space conducive to creative expression, to healing, becomes this positive feedback loop for personal exploration and expansion. It's ignoring the opinions and commentary from other people that don't understand the vision. There's something to be said here about not casting pearl to swine. Mediocre people certainly will have trouble seeing the rare gemstones and the value in the greater path that you're carving out. And there's lots to be said here. To sum that up, as the calendar new year keeps rolling in, there's certainly plenty to chew on. And we so often want to equate the new year with starting new, starting fresh. But here, at least in the southern hemisphere, the sun's already starting to begin its journey back toward darkness. We're midway through a cyclical process, and soon enough, the patterns of autumn will come, as will winter. So it's a great thing to be reminded and to remember to align ourselves to the seasonal changes. Our physiology, our psycho-spiritual states often mirror the natural rhythms of nature. Our body often wants to wind down and rest in sync with the earth, and when new buds emerge in spring, so too our body wants to spring into action. And often, really, it's the incessant chatter of the monkey mind that wants to keep striving and pushing and forcing, when really, it could be time for slow, for rest, could be time for mountain bear dreaming, for composting back into the earth to be reborn anew. But we're certainly not there yet, at least here in the south. For those of you in the northern hemisphere, well, obviously a different story. But look, to summarize all of this, like the bigger picture, larger arc, the umbrella guide here is get curious about your life. Zoom out, talk with your higher self. Be still, listen to the whispers from soul and spirit. Give care to your physical vessel. It's the conduit for soul and spirit to flow. Develop an awareness around your goals, your dreams, your values to generate that vision and that clarity. Reflect on your own relationship to commitment and create a sanctuary to foster insight, imagination, inspiration, healing, creative expression. Chances are, if you are listening to this, you want unknown results in your life. You want something new. You want to actualize your dreams and your visions. And if you want that, you need to walk an unknown path in life. And curiosity, alongside many things, can certainly be the flaming torch, the eternal compass that helps guide the way. I'll leave it at that for now. As mentioned, you can sign up to my newsletter if you vibe what's being delivered here, and you can follow on Instagram, on TikTok. My handle is @KayutaKiora. And you can certainly expect a lot more coming down the pipeline on this greater path of sharing about shamanism, awakening, healing, nature awareness, initiation, new earth leadership, all that kind of good stuff. So I hope this was as fruitful as birdsong on morning wind. Until next time.